I want to address my thoughts today to Jewish people everywhere, both here in Israel and around the world in the different countries of the world. In Israel itself, some amazing things are happening. I needn't talk about some of the challenges and some of the tragedy that we've been through, the enormous loss, the worry about the captured, the shvuyim, about the terrible losses of young men and those who have been wounded. But parallel to that, there have just been the most amazing acts of heroism, individuals, groups of people, organizations, coming together, a level of achdut, a level of unity that we haven't seen, I don't think, since the founding of the state. And a sense of emunah, an openness to appeal to Hashem, to feel part of God's nation, to believe that we're doing something that is a kiddush Hashem, something that we're doing in order to sanctify God's name, not only among the religious people in Israel, but among the irreligious people as well. People who were very far from anything Jewish, many of them turning to Yiddishkeit in one form or another, wanting to express, wanting to be part of it, wanting to do something. And unbelievable acts of chesed all around us, continuously, day and night, around the clock. People helping not only the soldiers who are fighting in the war, but people who are helping those who've been displaced, the families of people who have lost individuals or whose dear ones are in captivity. Just an enormous sense of chesed. And I think that certainly those of us here have the privilege of being able to see it firsthand, but I think that around the world, you're getting a sense of that as well. But I think it's important for those of you who are overseas, those of you who are in the United States, in Europe, in England, in South Africa, Australia, Canada, elsewhere, to realize that we're part of the same struggle, we're experiencing the same events, we are one nation. It's not about you overseas and we in Israel. It's not about the Jews of the Golan and the Jews of Eretz Israel. Now more than ever, we need to realize and appreciate this is one nation. This is Am Echad. This is a unique Echad. This is a Goy Echad Ba'aretz. This is a unique, singular nation in the entire world. And wherever in the world you are, you're part of that nation. We need you and you need us. And everything you're doing around the world, you're also on the front lines. You're also battling. You're battling the real war, because the real war is one of public relations, media reporting, anti-Semitism, activity on the campuses, activity in the town halls and in the Congress of the United States and of other government bodies throughout the world. The battle is not only against Hamas. Hamas is not fighting a battle for Gaza. Hamas couldn't care two hoots about Gaza. Hamas is fighting on behalf of Iran for an imperial Muslim state that occupies the entirety of Asia and thereafter the world. And this is only a part of their battle, and you are part of that battle too. And your defense overseas is as important as the Jews of Israel. Your support of Eretz Israel and your support of what is happening in Eretz Israel, as well as your direct engagement in changing the narrative overseas, in mastering the narrative, in not allowing the narrative overseas to master and dominate us, but to be active in modifying and recalibrating the narrative overseas. That's your battle, and you're in the front lines of that battle. And each one of us in Israel are so appreciative of everything you're doing, not only in the financial support that you provide, not only in the moral support that you provide, but in your attempts to communicate with your own network, beyond your own network, with government leaders, with senators and congressmen, with the media, and help to change the narrative to that which is true, that which is factual, and to try and battle the lies and the total sheker that we're seeing around the world, which is trying to destroy us. I also want to just give you a sense of perspective, and I addressed it in the special shiur that I gave this Rosh Chodesh on the month of Kislev. And that is Nisim. Miracles imply things that are supernatural. And anything supernatural is a miracle. The Holocaust was supernatural. The Holocaust is not something one could explain naturally. And that's why so many people have such difficulty with it, because we kind of blame Hashem for it. That couldn't have happened without not only Hashem's intervention, but Hashem's design, and we don't understand it, and we have difficulty with it. So even negative things that happen, we must recognize when they happen in a way that is supernatural and realize this is God's hand for whatever reason. And we're living through a time in the last 5 weeks in Israel where we are seeing God's hand in everything, in ways that I can't remember ever having seen before. If we start right at the beginning, what happened on October the 7th is beyond the understanding of tragedy. It's on a scale of tragedy that the human mind can't comprehend and the heart can't contain. And there were unbelievable korbanot. There were unbelievable sacrifices that day. And it's not only the sacrifices of the 1,200 or 1,400 people who lost their lives at that time. That was terrible sacrifice and the torture that took place. But even the families that survived it and are living with those memories and struggling with them, that is part of the sacrifice. And the soldiers who went to help and what they saw and them struggling with what they saw and experienced. And of course, the war which came afterwards and all the korbanot, all the sacrifices that's entailed, there is an enormous sacrifice that is being paid. And I want to talk to you briefly about the idea of a sacrifice, of a korban, not suggesting that we can understand Hashem in this area. We can't, it's beyond us. But let's try and make some kind of meaning, if we can, in what is happening and why. The meaning of a korban is, when you make a sacrifice for something, you are investing in it. You are investing it in the biggest way possible. And investing in something means you never take it for granted. When something is given to us without effort, when something is given to us without investment, we tend to take it for granted. Not so when we've worked all our lives terribly hard to be able to afford something and finally we can get it. That's not something we take for granted. That's the nature of investment. And when, unfortunately, Hashem is required of us to invest people, our dearest ones, our precious human beings, young Jewish people, bright, wonderful Jewish people, and they have become sacrifices. That is something we can never, ever take for granted. And it's not only the sacrifices of October the 7th and the weeks following it. It's the sacrifices of the last 75 years. It's the sacrifices even of the Holocaust. There is a pattern from the time of the Holocaust where things were so black and we lost so many people, to the rise of the State of Israel, and we continue to invest people. Consider a korban as an investment of Jewish life, an investment of Jewish blood in the establishment of Eretz Israel in Israel, and Jewish life, and all of the Torah and mitzvot, and all the chesed that comes with a land of Israel, a state of Israel, a people of Israel living in Israel. All of that has taken such korbanot, has taken such sacrifice. We can never for a moment take it for granted. As we walk through the streets of Israel, if we sit on the beaches or in the coffee shops or we're in the yeshivot or the universities, every moment to realize that we have this through unbelievable sacrifice of precious human beings and their families who gave of their lives so that we can have what we have. And so we need to understand that there were korbanot on October the 7th. And there have been korbanot subsequent to October the 7th. And those korbanot are precious korbanot. We honor them. We admire them. We thank them with our hearts full of gratitude for sacrificing their lives so that we can have what we have today and what we're going to have in the future. And we will never take it for granted because of the blood that has been sacrificed to make it possible. That being the case, we also need to appreciate that the horror of October the 7th did something quite amazing, and it is so tragic that it took that to achieve what was achieved on October the 7th. And I refer you back to the shiur I gave on Tisha B'Av, warning us that we run the risk of losing Israel. We are destroying ourselves. We are tearing ourselves apart from the inside. We run the risk of implosion. On the right and the left, the religious and the irreligious, we're tearing ourselves apart, and we could lose Israel. And we nearly did, in a kind of a way, on Simchas Torah on October the 7th. On October the 6th, we were in that state of pirud, in that state of dissension, of ripping each other apart, of lashon hara, of sinat chinam, of hatred, and evil talking about one another. We were in that state of people emigrating and going to live in Portugal, in Germany, in France, just to get away from Israel. No need to put up with the highest costs of living in Israel. You remember people were saying, this was not even 2 months ago. We could live a much better life elsewhere in the world. And off they went. And they took their money out, and they encouraged others to take their money out, so as to bring about the downfall, they were saying, of the government. But in fact, they were bringing down the downfall of Israel. And within an hour of October the 7th, everything changed. The nation became one. The nation became unified. People started coming back. Anti-Semitism spread throughout the world, and the very people who ran from Israel are running back to Israel because they would rather fight Hamas than fight the disgusting anti-Semitism that's taking place overseas. And those horizons of peace and happiness and joy that they saw in these lands overseas suddenly have become very uncomfortable places for Jewish people, and the realization that we all need to come back, that this is our home, this is where we can build our future, both as individuals and families and communities and as a nation. And all of that happened in an hour on October the 7th. And so that was miraculous. That was supernatural. Yes, the costs were too terrible, and it'll take us years, if ever, to integrate, to accept, to be able to deal with those losses. But we need to also understand that we left Hashem no alternative, kibiyachol, so to say. We left him no alternative but to shake us back into the reality of us being one nation, of us being brothers and sisters, of us being there for one another no matter what. No matter what each of us believes and the opinions that we have, no matter how religious or irreligious, no matter what our political persuasions, we are brothers, we are one family, and we're there for each other. And it took such a terrible tragedy to bring us back to that state. But thank God that's where we are right now. And our big challenge will be to stay there, to remain there as we rebuild a new Israel, a new nation of Israel, after this time. There were other miracles too. The fact that Hezbollah didn't enter the battle in the first hour or two, that was miraculous. The fact that the terrorists themselves were so intoxicated with hate that instead of executing on their directives to conquer military targets, they became embroiled in murder and killing and raping on the moshavim, on the settlements, instead of doing what they were supposed to have done, which would have been far worse for us and better for them. That too was a miracle. And then the Mesirus Nefesh, the complete dedication and willingness to sacrifice life of individuals who, the moment they heard that their brothers and sisters in the south were in trouble, got into their vehicles, took their guns if they had them, and went down to battle the terrorists, sometimes one-on-one, not always part of a group, not always part of a military unit. Just even individuals going down to do whatever they could, that was miraculous. So many miracles happened on October the 7th. And we're hearing of the most amazing miracles happening on the battlefields. Not only acts of heroism, but actually miracles. So October the 7th, which was supernatural, had two elements to it. It had the korbanot, which were the investment that we've had to make in this new Israel that we're hopefully going to build. And it had the element of achdut. It had the element of oneness, of coming together in some amazing cohesion. And with that, it's important also to be sensitive to the time of year that we're in. We've moved from Cheshvan into Kislev, the month of Cheshvan into Kislev. The constellation for Cheshvan is Akrav, it's the scorpion, the sting of the scorpion. We've experienced the sting of the scorpion. And the constellation for Kislev is the Keshet, Sagittarius. It's the bow, not only the bow of the bow and arrow, where from within the security of our own fortress, our own land, we can shoot arrows and make sure that our security is guaranteed. But also the keshet, in the sense Rabbeinu Bechaya says keshet doesn't mean only bow and arrow, it also means rainbow. And it was interesting that certainly in our area in Ra'anana, on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, we saw the most magnificent rainbow, which is a sign of peace with Hashem, a sign of wholeness, a sign of oneness. And the letter that the Sefer Yetzirah associates with Cheshvan is Nun. And Nun stands for Nefilah, for downfall, which is why it doesn't appear in the Ashrei. And we had our downfall during the month of Cheshvan. But the month of Kislev is associated with the letter Samach. And Samach is a surrounding of protection. It's a circle. That's what the samach is. And the word samach means support. We are supported by the embrace of God's love and of our national love one for the other in the month of Kislev. And so as we leave the horrors of Cheshvan behind us and we move into the miracles of Kislev, I ask you to spread the beauty, to spread the greatness, to spread the heroism. There are video clips of horror, but there are video clips of greatness, of wonder. And those are the things that it's important to share with one another, to talk about with one another, to change the narrative from one of hate to one of love, to change the narrative from the destruction of the Jewish people to the new rising, or the rising anew of the Jewish people, into a nation that is powerful not only militarily, but into a nation that is powerful in the good that it does in the world, in the contribution it makes to the world, and the way it sanctifies Hashem's name in the world.